Obsidian Bases is now public, and it's a really big deal. I didn't quite understand why until last night. I figured it out and it blew my mind. Let's go. Oh, and I forgot, while I can't give you all of the bases, I'm going to give you the project's base. You'll be able to download it and use it immediately in your system. I hope that's helpful. In the meantime, let's do this. I'm Nick Milo, and I'm here to help you do your best thinking more often. You ready? Let's go. The 3 best features of bases. So let's immediately create a new base. Now to do that, I'm going to hit Command P on a Mac or Control P on Windows. I'm just going to start typing bases, and then we can go ahead and select the command create new base. Let me just give it a new name really fast. Let's call it new base. And what you'll see is there is no delay at all. It is instantaneous. It is so freaking fast. It's fantastic. Now, how does this work? The number 1 best feature is speed. And according to Capano, the CEO of Obsidian, I asked about speed early on, and he said that Bases has a ton of optimizations for scrolling large tables, and it can handle his vault with tens of thousands of files without issue. And as you just saw here, I can report the same. I'm just scrolling. It's really, really nice. So let's go ahead and close this base. And the next big feature outside of speed is multiple views per base. So for this one, I have open my sources base. All the cool outside sources that I've captured and brought in and collected and cultivated. All the good stuff. Now this, if we open up sources, we can see over here on the left-hand side, and I'll cover this in a little bit. This area is called your views. And you can see that I've already pre-created a bunch of different views that we'll get to look at together. And that's the thing. This is one single base, and it's looking at all my sources. Over here in properties, we'll cover this later too. So what's in the sources base, over here in filter, and we'll cover this later as well, you can see that I have it where the folder contains sources. So in this case, all of my sources are underneath Atlas and sources. So when we look at these 1600 results in my Ideaverse, you can see that that's what's made up with all these different folders and files there. So closing the sidebar again, we have all these sources. But what's amazing is I can have multiple different views in the same base. So for example, if I want to look at my books, I can go ahead and click on the books, and it's in table view. If I want to look at books as a card view, I can go ahead and do that immediately. If I want to look at different shows, table view. If I want to look at shows in card view, wow, this is exciting. Okay, so let's go back up to sources, and then let's look at the 3rd best feature of Obsidian, and that is the live editing. You can now rapidly edit and write whatever you want in bases with autocomplete right away. So if I were in sources, let's go back over to books. Let's see if there's anything that I could look at here. And for whatever reason, the Tao Te Ching. Okay, so I don't have a rating on this. I feel bad kind of rating some awesome historical philosophical text, but let's just go ahead and give it a 4. Just so you can see, I just gave it a 4, and immediately now it's going to move up here, and now we see the Tao Te Ching is right here. Cool. So you can just edit whatever you want at any time. So Glass Bead Game, I know, is by Hermann Hesse, and so immediately we see Hermann's name populate here. This is such a faster way to make sense of your world and build context around whatever the core base is. So as I mentioned, in this case, it's sources, and we're specifically looking at books as sources. All right, let's get into the basics of bases now. For those of you who can read faster than I can speak out loud, you can see the list of questions that I intend to cover in this section. Number 1, so to zoom out, what are bases? This is a link to the Obsidian help files. Bases is a core plugin that lets you turn any set of notes into a powerful database. With bases, you can organize everything from projects to travel plans, reading lists, and more. That's what bases are. Now, why bases? This is to quickly filter and present all the files that meet certain parameters so you can navigate them quickly and get a summary of like things. I'm going to cover the why throughout this entire video, but that's just a broad overview. Now, how do you create a base? We already covered this. Hit Command or Control P and start typing base. So I'm on a Mac, I'll hit Command P. If I type bases, you can see I can either create a new base or something we'll cover later, insert new base, which is a very exciting thing when you know how to use it. How do bases work? So how does a base work? I think this is a really important one, and one that I don't want us to overlook, especially if you're just starting out. And to be frank, they are a little confusing at first. So I just want to take a step to say, when we clicked over to our sources base, how does this work? So we're in the book view. How is this pulling things? And the little prints, it's a note. So under file name, this is a note. And I've given it property metadata. So this is basically information about the note itself. And we keep that within each note. Let me show you in the little prints. So if I go ahead and open the little prints and I twirl properties, we can see these are things that I've collected about the book. There's a lot here. Most of my notes don't have this. My daily notes, my journal notes, they typically just have a created date. That's it. The book note, though, has a bunch of different information, and all these represent different properties. So that way, when we want to add some sort of column in a base, we just click over here to properties, and then we can go ahead and add whatever we might imagine. Things in the note, but also Obsidian includes some global data that all notes have. So in this case, I could add file base name. What are we going to get? So I'll scroll over to the left and we see file base name. It's just the file name again, except it's not linked. So that's not too helpful. So I'll go over here in properties and I'll just remove it by deselecting the property there. So that's one way to do it. Now we can easily move these different sections around to our heart's content. I really liked having year first. And then another thing you can do is just click on year. Now we're sorting by year. So those are ways to manually sort anything, but you can also have the baked in natural sorting, and you can decide that here. So you can see right now it's sorting by year, earliest to latest, and then by rating. Pop quiz. What did I just cover and what's controlling all this? These are properties. Properties exist in a note. You can add properties to any note you want, and then bases become super powered because now you can leverage all that property information that you've added in really cool, compelling ways. And not just for the data scientists out there, for the thinkers and for the sense makers. And I'll be showing that very soon. Okay, next question. What is a view? We've already covered views. Good thing. So on the far left where it says books, we have all these different views. I can add views, or what I prefer to do, and this is a best practice, is you create your main view. In this case, it's sources. And then you click on the right arrow here, and then go to the three dots, and then you duplicate that view. So that will save all your different columns that you've thoughtfully set up. And then you can, well, what would I do? I would go to, let's call this books example. Let's go off the trail a little bit and just do this together. So right now, books example is a new view. And I'm just going to put it up here. Now, if we go to filter, we're going to see that in all of the views, all of these views over here, it has the top all views filter applied. So all these are going to be in the folder called sources. But this is where you change something else. So this is where we're going to say, in this particular view, I'm going to add my next filter. So let me just see what I did in books. So look at that, 126 results right here. And that is because in the next filter, I said where file in folder, and then I said Atlas sources books. Okay, so let's repeat that in our example because I really want to walk through these steps because it is intimidating. So make sure if this view's twirled closed that you open it up. So in this case, I could choose folder and select the folder, but I'm just going to say file because that seems to be the first option. Oh, look at that, has tag, links to, that's kind of cool. How about in folder? And then I know the folder and its sources. So let me just start typing sources. And then we can see that we have Atlas, sources, and then books. So we want that one with books. If I hit tab, we have 126 results on the left. That's what we want. So look at that. That is views. We didn't just cover views. We covered how views work, how you duplicate them, how you can add new views, and then really the important part, how do you add a new filter to that specific view while still maintaining the global filter for the main view here. What do I mean by that? That means in any of the views, see this all views here? In any of the views that I enter on the left, you'll see this here. The folder contains sources. So if I go to let's say the shows again, like this really cool one, probably my favorite. And if I click filter, notice the same filter is at the top. folder contains sources. All right, now let's keep it going. Like I said, this is a big video, but everything matters here. Whether you're new, intermediate, or advanced, I have you covered. So if you're wondering what view options we currently have list and card view. I showed you both views, and if you're curious how to change those, click over to the views section again, and then let's see shows. So if I click over on shows and I click on the right-hand arrow, I can now change the layout. It's right here. Table and cards. Pretty soon we'll have Kanban and who knows, probably a couple others. So that's where you can change the different view options. How do we create new views? Guess what? I already showed you. How do we filter views? Hey, I already showed you that. What are properties? We already covered properties. Now we're flying through. If you're wondering, what properties should I start with in my notes so I can start to use them in my bases? I'd like to say start with modified and created. How about related and link to all sorts of related notes? How about up? Like what type of note links up? And what collection is this a part of? So if we go back to sources, we can see that Lord of the Rings, Fellowship of the Ring is in the collection movies. Let's see if I added anything else. So I decided not to add related or created for this particular one. And I have a bunch of other things though. Now we're almost done with the basics of a base. To go a little bit further, I want to explain why Obsidian Bases in some ways is better than Notion. So this is actually straight from a Reddit post, and I totally agreed with this particular comment regarding Notion, but between the slowness, it's not fast, the lack of offline support, it's in the cloud, Notion databases are not that protected, and being locked into somebody else's ecosystem, Notion's, not yours, this person started to look for alternatives. And I can totally get that. If you're using Notion for your personal, private notes that mean something to you, you really have to hesitate before going all in with Notion. Now, however, Notion is by far better than where Obsidian is today with using bases with a team, or in fact, doing anything with a team. Now, somewhere on Obsidian's roadmap is what they call multiplayer, but we're still waiting for that, and I don't expect it until 2026. Now, how do I embed views? And this is where it gets exciting, and this brings us to dynamic links. I wish you were with me when I discovered the power of bases, the thing that I love the most about it, the thing that allows linking our own thinking to come alive so we can see things with a new lens again and again. So something that I talked about in the earlier parts is that bases are embeddable. Now is the time that we get to explore it. So let's open up sources and look at that movie at the top, and there's a director, Peter Jackson. So I'm going to hold Command, click Peter Jackson to open up in a new tab. So here's my note on Peter Jackson. And what I want to show you is what's possible with this sources base. Remember, we have sources and we have shows as cards. We have something else, shows for director. Now, if I click over on filter, there's this special filter. I don't know quite how it works, but I'm going to show you the result of it. If I go over to Peter Jackson, and I'm going to use the Obsidian syntax to embed something. That is an exclamation point, bracket, bracket. Then I'm going to start typing sources base. Now, I'm going to delete twice and then continue with the formatting, which is a hashtag. That's going to look at all the different views that I have in that base. Now I'm going to actually choose shows director, and would you look at that? Peter Jackson, and these are the shows that I have in my database that have him as a director, and it's all right here, and it's sorted by my personal rating. How cool is that? That's pretty cool, right? And we can continue with this process. So this is where it gets interesting as well. So in sources base, how about I just go ahead and, I don't know, throw it over here. Now I'm going to click on Peter Jackson. Oh my goodness. So you just see what happened? So I clicked on Peter Jackson, the note, and it auto-updated over here. That is wild. So it auto-updated just by being in this Peter Jackson note. Let me zoom out one or two so you can see just a little bit more information. So all of a sudden, we can now, whatever note I click on, so if I'm on Peter Jackson right now, how about I go to a different director? Hayao Miyazaki. If I click on Miyazaki, look at that. Look at that. Shows right here. Okay, who else? I think James Cameron would be another good example. I don't even think I've created the note on James Cameron. Look at that. I haven't even touched the James Cameron note. That's what this little icon is saying. I'm going to go ahead and click on James Cameron and look at that. Auto updating dynamic links showing me the James Cameron movies that I have in my base. Wow, this is blowing my mind. And I have my ratings here. Okay, so that is so cool. But then late last night, I started to think, like, what could we do with this in the sidebar with these auto updating? Like, how could this really make our thinking come alive? That's what it's about for me. How can having all this sort of dimensional linking help us remember what's important, to strengthen connections, to deliver aha moments, and just have incredible fun thinking and enjoying the thought process to create meaning in our lives and others? How can we do that? So it was like, okay, but even cooler, this is where we're at now. You can put bases in a sidebar, and it turns out this opens up a new, enriching way of working. Are you ready for it? Okay, so let's go back to James Cameron. So let me go ahead and open up the sidebar I've been waiting to show you. And what you're going to notice here is James Cameron, and then we have these different ways that links can show up. Now, this is probably better if I zoom out a little bit more, so I apologize that it's getting a little small. But now under James Cameron and under the Atlas links, you can see a few different things showing up. So what did I do? I created special views for any notes that are in the plus folder. So if we go over here on the left, the ACE folder framework, this is part of Ideaverse Pro. It's part of the broader linking your thinking world. The add folder, Atlas, calendar, efforts, and X, the extra folder. So over here we have the add folder showing any links of James Cameron that are in the add folder. There are none here. But how about this? Let's try Arnold Schwarzenegger. So if I click on Arnold Schwarzenegger, look at this now. So we have 11 movies in the Atlas links folder. And this is pretty cool. So if I look, we got Batman and Robin, Commando, Last Action Hero. But what's interesting is I mentioned Arnold Schwarzenegger in a calendar note earlier this year. What's more interesting is Arnold was mentioned in a story that I wrote, and this story was written in 2023, The Curious Story of Arnold and Kintsugi. And what's more, if I keep going and I look at the extras folder, this is where I had my old vault of like 4,000 notes from the old Evernote days. You can see timestamp notes from some quotes from 2009 that reference Arnold Schwarzenegger. So if we open this note, and, well, I have a lot of quotes in here, so let me search for Arnold, and there it is. The mind is the limit. As long as the mind can envision the fact that you can do something, you can do it, as long as you really believe 100%. That is a quote that I saved from 2009, 16 years ago, and it just surfaced and elevated like magic because I clicked on the Arnold Schwarzenegger note, and I went to look at this dynamic link on the sidebar that I've created. And here's another one on INTJ. So apparently some people out there think that Arnold fits the INTJ Myers-Briggs archetype. Interesting. And that was from 2014, if you can read that. Again, I apologize if it's a little small. That is phenomenal. All the stuff that we're doing there. So now let's go back from Arnold Schwarzenegger, and I want to show you something. Let's use Peter Jackson as the example. So in the Peter Jackson example, and I have a lot of tests in here, but on the right-hand side, we see that there are 7 results in the Atlas folder, and that's all of his different movies. But we have one more result where I mentioned him in our main note over here, Obsidian Bases, the official launch. So that's the effort note. Now overall, 7 plus 1, 8 linked mentions. And if you go back to the standard way to look at backlinks, that would be over here. And you can see at the very bottom, we have linked mentions, and they're 8. Now, do you remember this way of trying to like go? There's no context here. So let me just pull this out so we can look even more. This is the normal linked mentions view. It's a tab that I can move anywhere. So right now I've moved it here. No context at all. Peter Jackson, link mentioned King Kong. Okay, what does that mean? So if I scroll down on it, unrendered director Peter Jackson. Frankly, it's ugly and it's not fun to look at. These are the link mentions for the normal backlinks process. However, What Bases has unlocked is the ability to customize dynamic links. You can now customize dynamic links for whatever note you're on. In this case, Peter Jackson will immediately, I can now visualize these 8 links in a completely different way. Now I can look at that and say, okay, it looks like a lot of them are in Atlas, where I have different like timeless material, ideas and movies and sources and things. Nothing with calendar. I guess I've never journaled about Peter Jackson. And then one effort, which you're currently looking at now, a video that I'm working on right now. This is so much more effective. And to make it truly come alive, I'm going to zoom out one more. Is that going to be too small? Ooh, it's going to be a little small, isn't it? Because in this case, we looked at Arnold Schwarzenegger, but what about bullet journal creator, writer Carol? Look at that. Light, the Linking Your Thinking conference, number 3 as potential people. That's in something that I still need to sort, looks like, in the ad folder. 3 notes in Atlas, the bullet journal method. I think he must be mentioned in Building a Second Brain book, and he's in a different list that I have. A meeting with friends on this particular date, and different efforts where writer's name is mentioned, all here. So even though there's very little written about writer in this note, just by clicking on his name, I get to see everything that he's linked to in context. This meeting tells me immediately who else was there just by looking at the links on the right. So that's pretty powerful. It gets even better when we think about ideas. So there's a term, idea emergence, and I can immediately see robust, dynamic, really 3-dimensional links here. I can see newer ideas that have not been sorted. I can see timeless ideas that relate to idea emergence. I can see calendar links here. And with all this context, I can scroll and see what else is linked every step of the way. So idea emergence, I can see, affordance links to idea emergence. What is affordance and what does that link to? Cognitive scaffolding, James J. Gibson. It blows my mind. And then we can see the different efforts that mention idea emergence and where those efforts live, what they're related to. How about Ideaverse Pro 2, which launched earlier this year, and 2.5, which includes all of this Bases stuff, everything that we're doing with Bases. It's going to be in Ideaverse Pro 2.5. Well, we can see what this effort, this project of mine, where it has linked to in the past. So we have Atlas links, calendar links, and effort links all right here. How is Bases changing then how I use Obsidian? Because it has. It's done a couple things right out of the gates. Dynamic links, like what you see over here on the right-hand side, they make me go from liking Bases to loving Bases because I'm not actually looking at the base itself all the time. I'm using it to create a 3-dimensional map of all the links in my entire Ideaverse. It's really kind of like I'm navigating this 3-dimensional space. And because of Bases, I've decided to prioritize all these links on my right-hand sidebar. This means so much to me to have this. Now, usually when I'm on my own, it's a bit smaller and then I can see more context. But when I share on the screen right now, I kind of zoom in so it looks a little bit more cramped than it normally is. Instead, what this means is because of Bases, I'm going to try properties back at the top of a node. So let's go back into idea emergence. And we can now see properties are back at the top of a node. Now I've done a couple things. I've manually hard-coded my appearance to hide where it says add property. I viscerally dislike the fact that Obsidian does not have an option just to turn off this add property thing. It's so annoying to a person who wants to focus on writing and thinking without having to have this add property button staring at us all the time. So I just hard-coded, deleted that using a snippet, and we're not going to cover that today. And for the most part, properties usually start collapsed. I'm still playing around with that, and I added this divider line. So when I open a note, I can focus on the ideas. But because I want the links in the sidebar like this, that's why I've decided to put properties back over here, because properties normally was over in this section, and now it's just a little bit, I still like it in the upper right, but I think I like even more being able to see all the linked base context. I think it's just too valuable to pass up. We're going to cover the top 10 bases, and this is a huge walkthrough of mine. And then if time allows, then I intend to cover these final bits as well. Okay, let's dive into my top 10 bases. So let's twirl this down. And for this, we're going to use the ACE folder framework that you can see on the left-hand side here. And to start things off, we're going to go at the top with, if there's an add folder, I want to show you what the add base looks like. So there are 372 results. And if I hover over the folder, 372 files, with some folders for different, it's for the purpose of a video. We can see they're sorted by modified time, new to old, that's my choice. And the filter is just that where the folder here, starts with plus, the plus icon, which is what we're calling the add folder. And so we can see all the modified time. We can see in the previous videos you saw I was in the James Cameron note and the Peter Jackson note, and so that's why they are at the top, because they are recent files that are in the unsorted folder here. So pretty cool. And that's just to kick things off. Where things really get going is when we open up the Atlas base. So now we have 3,288 results. The first thing that you should do when you look at a base is go over here to filter. That's the number one thing you want to do. If you click on filter, see what the view is saying. In this case, it's saying where all the following are true. Folder starts with Atlas. And so that's going to give us everything in this folder. If I hover over Atlas, you see that the results match the files. 3288. Cool. So, and then it's sorted by rank, apparently. So I wanted to sort this by rank, but I could easily sort it by other concepts. So what's cool about this, and this is one of the best practices I'll cover at the end, is you don't want to think about what's the narrowest I can go and then create a base about that. You actually want to start broader with your base, because then each view you have becomes a narrower subset. So here I started broad. I started with the entire Atlas folder. It's like 1/3 of my notes. And then I said, let's make views for different parts of the Atlas. But to make it simple for myself, I went ahead and did it for dots, for maps, and for sources, because each of those have really important, distinct types of notes underneath. So for that one, we're going to now close Atlas, and we're going to jump into dots. You can see I have a few different types of subbases, but for now, let's start with dots. And here, what are dots? They're like anything, any bit of information or idea or piece of knowledge. It's like a dot, and you use it and you connect it to another dot, and that helps you make sense of whatever effort or idea that you're working on. So dots are just these bits of information or ideas that are relevant to you, and they have a relatively timeless quality. So in this case, you can see, based on our previous videos, we were in these notes, so this must be sorted by modified time first. And there are 1,377 dots in here, but this is where it gets great. So if I look here, I've basically replicated what we have on the left-hand side here. I can actually make people. So we have people, questions, quotes, statements, and things. Very, very exciting, because now I can just click over to people and I can see this list of people. I can see all sorts of context. I can see tags. It gets exciting. Questions, quotes. Let's go over to quotes. Have some really cool stuff here. It looks like it's sorted by rank. Look at that. All these quotes I like, who it's by, the rank, modified time, the collection it's a part of, related notes I've linked it to. How powerful is that? And it's all right there. I love statements. You know, these powerful statements that you make. You can make them in note title. And we cover this a lot in the Linking Your Thinking workshop in our online community. It's awesome when I stare at these and I say, these are bits of wisdom that I've encapsulated into a statement. And now I can scroll through them. I can see if some of these have rank. I can sort by rank. It looks like I haven't spent too much time doing that. Then I can go to thing notes. These things, idea emergence that we covered. Dynamic links is a new one. All sorts of cool things that I can now use as my intellectual capital when I'm working on any effort in my life. And it enriches it in amazing ways. So that's the dots. And now, just because I think it's interesting, I do have a couple special bases. One is the garden. And so here I have a plant tag for notes that are not linked as well as I should like. And so we just give a little tag to a note. What does that look like? So if I go to signal to noise ratio, and in this case, we're just going to kind of clean these things up, let me go ahead and put the properties over here. In signal to noise ratio, you can see that I've given it a tag property, garden plant. Essentially like, hey, I have to plant this. Sure, it's connected to a couple things, but I need it to be planted to more. So in that case, that is what we're looking at here with signal to noise and with this tag. However, there are some notes that have been planted well, but I want to develop them. I want to cultivate them. So what does that look like? You can see the notes that I have with that garden tag right here. So we just covered another base, and there's one more. Quotes. Well, I've kind of already covered quotes. So I'll just say that notes like this serve a very practical purpose in that they build context around the events that happen in your life. It's like, who cares about these things? Like, that's not going to help me get things done. It's not going to help you as directly and as linearly get things done. But let's be honest. Is that where you as a human are creating value all the time? And is it where you'll be creating value in the future when AI is doing more and more of this type of linear work? Where you can provide value is by understanding, unlocking, and expressing your unique perspective and your unique voice. So how do we get there? So now, if we identify the sources that resonate with us, the movies, the quotes, the people, the places, and we can connect them to our current objectives, our tasks, our goals, and allow them to kind of like flavor and interact in our minds, we're going to be able to contribute more real, generative value in those situations. You're going to find out that this process that is mostly invisible because it's been up here, we can now externalize it and increase the serendipity of having luck and innovative connections happen. That's what I'm trying to get at here. So also in a philosophical purpose, this helps you honor your life. Be more thoughtful about the experiences that you're having. That's never not a good idea. All right, so let's go to the map space. Now we're still in Atlas. But we twirl down maps, we have all my maps, and then we have some special bases. But in my views, I have these different types of maps. Now I cover all this in the Ideaverse Pro 2.0 and 2.5. 2.5 will have all these bases, including bases themselves. Like these are all my bases. These are the only ones that I currently need. I'll probably add a couple more. But again, you want to zoom out with your base so that each view can then zoom in, as you see here. This is my map space, and I have like all my maps. I have the bases. I have special collections, and also dedicated views. These are like very unique, sort of customized views. Okay, so moving forward, we have sources. And the good thing is I showed sources a lot in our first video, especially talking about all the different views, in particular, the shows, because I think it's so cool to have this sorted by rating and then just see 1,000 different movies that I've watched. And if I have to guess, I think I've watched probably closer to like 2,700 to 3,000 movies, but I have at least 1,000 on here. Not bad, right? Not bad. And I've mixed in a few different forms of media. So we have the play of Les Miserables, and that's so important to me, and it's my collection. I want to put it here and make sure that it gets here. So with the right filters, you can make sure that that happens. And that's kind of what we made sure to work here. Okay, so with that in mind, I want to talk about books. And I want to talk about how I got these images in. This is actually where I'm going to bring in Claude Code. This is AI. And I just want to kind of share with you a little bit of what I did. I had 50 notes that had an image of a book, but not, over 100. Not all of them do, but at least around 100 do now. So I basically said, okay, hey, in this directory, you should notice some of these notes and files have a YAML property called image, which they do. So if we click on little prints and we click on properties, we can see that there is this image that looks for an online location for an image. So if we click on that, and we can see the image is right here. All right, so what I did was I was talking with Claude Code, an agentic AI, and I said, all right, so you can see these images, right? And you can see what the formatting and the properties look like, right? What I want is for all the book notes in this directory that don't have an image property, I'd love if you could go online and if you could find the appropriate image property for each of these books. Does that make sense? And can you do it? What do you think Claude Code said? And it says, I understand. This is what you're trying to get me to do. Let me create a to-do list and let me work through this to-do list. And it did exactly that. It looked at the books that had images already, Neuromancer, The Extended Mind, Harold and the Purple Crayon. And it's like, okay, I think I figured it out. And then let me identify all the books now without images. So then it looked at all the 126 files and it's identified 79 books that needed images. Then said, I'll start by searching for covers online. And it did that. And it's like, it's trying to use like a Google Books API. Okay. Now let me create a systematic approach to do all this. And then it said something about like, I want to create a comprehensive solution to add Google Books to all the books. And so it started to script, and at this point, I think it gets a little stuck. It does a couple more books. Okay, so it's trying to demonstrate to me the process. And then it says that I've successfully added Google Books images to 3 books. And I was like, but they're like 79 to do, so why only 3? And it's like I could continue doing manually in these batches, or I could run a Python script to automate the process. And I was like, I don't know. How about you do 1 or 2? Which is easier for me? Look at that. 1 or 2. Do option 1 or 2. Which is easier for me? And it's like, I'll do option 2. I'll create the script for you. I was like, yeah, do that then. So then it's just on its own. Like I'm doing my own thing, and it's just it's getting stuck. I have to install this, whatever is needed for Python scripts. I don't know. And now it's figured it out, and it's found and updated those 76 books with cover images. That is amazing. So then it's reporting the to-do list is complete. And then guess what? That is when I go back over to my base. I go into my books, this cards view. And I'm like, oh, this is awesome. All these books that did not have images before, and they're all here. And how cool is this? There are a couple that are missing because of, the way that I've named them years ago. And that's a little bit easier to fix. But like a lot of these did not have images. And now when I scroll through, I'm like, wow, these have images. Some of them could be a little bit better, but not bad at all. So that is the sources base and how I was able to use AI, specifically Claude Code, to allow a lot of my Ideaverse to be populated with great properties, with amazing images to make it come alive. Yes, we'll be covering this in the Linking Your Thinking workshop, but I just wanted to share a little bit with you right now. There'll be a wait list that you can join, or a QR code or something if you're interested to hear more. This is the big long walkthrough tour. So we're doing exactly what we need to do. Let me now cover. So we saw the ad folder. We spent so much time with Atlas. I'm going to fly through calendar, daily notes, weekly notes, annual reviews, everything in between. What about these notes? So in this case, we have a calendar view. We can go to let me just go to the days view. And then here you can see the recent daily notes that I've created. You can see a lot of them. If you look at the file links, you can see the LYT book that I'm writing comes up a lot. And you can see the different types of notes that I'm making. And I don't typically do a daily note just to do one, but what I'll typically do is what I'm calling an arc. It's like a weekly arc, but oftentimes it covers a couple weeks. And we can see that there's an active one here, and we can see the one that I just finished and has links to like Happy Gilmore 2 and kicking off the writing original works and different people. It's all just right there doing amazing things. And then let's fast forward to the efforts folder. And the efforts base, so for the efforts folder, we have an efforts base. And in this case, we're just going to close that because these high-level bases are what I used to make all these magical dynamic links happen. Kind of outside the scope, I've shared a lot on dynamic links, but I can only go so far into this in a YouTube video. Like this is where we really need to be hands-on together in a live session. But I can show and provide this project's base, and you can see how to make it your own. So in this base, which you can get by downloading or clicking this, whatever, if you click filter, you'll see that where the following is true, so where the folder starts with wherever your projects are, that's going to be the main project view. And then if you have subfolders, and in my case, I believe in the formula of active, simmering, and sleeping. Something's active, or it's simmering. It's like in the background and you're sort of collecting information and ideas about that, or it's sleeping. Either you're not going to do it or you're done doing it, but you still can reference it. So in this case, if I twirl down efforts and then projects, we can see those 3 folders are here. Now, if I twirl open projects, you can see under active, we have 10 files. So let's go ahead and now click on the active project. You can see those same 10 files show up right here. And they're currently, it looks like they're sorted by rank. I can double check that. Yes, they are. So they're right here. They're for me. Not only that though, it's not just like, hey, this is the project you have to do, but if you use this and if you have some decent, property metadata, you can sort by rank. You can also have something that it links up to. You can have related notes that it links out to, and you can see all the different notes that are linked from it. This is pretty powerful. At a glance, I can look at Ideaverse Pro 2.0, which to be honest, now I need to update, and I'll show you how to do this. Okay, I'll show you how to do this. But it was a rank of 5, and it was active. It's no longer, so we can change this live. But before I do, I want to see if I can go ahead and create Ideaverse Pro 2.5. It's going to have all these bases that I'm talking about. So I think if I actually copy the relative path, I guarantee you have not seen this trick. Now I'm going to hit Command on a Mac, Command O, Control O on Windows. I'm going to hit paste. Okay, I'm going to change 2.5 or 2.0 to 2.5 and hit enter. And now we have a new note. So if I go back to the base, look at what's at the bottom now. Look at it, and when we clicked on it, it's in the exact folder I want it to be in. So that's pretty wild. What did I do again? I right-clicked on Ideaverse Pro 2.0 and I copied the relative path. And then that way, when I click Command or Control O, I can just hit paste. I can slightly modify the title and it's exactly where it needs to be. So now I'll give this one a rank of 4. How about this? I give it a rank of 4.7 just so it climbs a little bit higher to the top. This has already been done too. So because Ideaverse Pro 2.0 is actually done, I can right-click right here and just move the file to projects sleeping. And now it's gone from here and we have the new one, 2.5, ready to go. Now, when I think about the linking or thinking book, I honestly think like that's a 5.1. It is super high. This one, I need to turn to sleeping, but I'll just make it a 2 for now. And so we can start to actively rank and then go into projects, make progress, and then zoom back out. So when you get this base from me, you'll have the main highest level projects base, that view, and then you'll have 3 additional views, the active, the simmering, and the sleeping. Now, if I click on simmering, you can see 26 results here. And then, but let's go back to active. And then the key is under filter, you just need to say where, and then have some sort of extra filter. In my case, you can see how simple it is. I just use folders for this actually. So we just have the top one that filters through efforts projects, and then that's here. And then you can see the view by view filter is efforts project active. And if I click over on simmering, and I click on filters, we see efforts project simmering, and then you get the idea. So that's what I'll provide you in the link or the QR code, and that can kind of get you kick-started. You can kind of see what's working, what's not. You can see, obviously, there'll be a lot of columns that are blank. Imagine, you might not have an up property. Right-click on it and just hit hide column, and then it's out of your way. If you want to add it back, what do? You hit properties, you hit up, and then you just add it again. Now it's here, it's on the far right, and I'll just move it to wherever I want it. So that's how fast we can start to work in bases and allow it to really inform how we work through our ideas, through our thinking in this very special space that we call an Ideaverse. We are now in 3 mindsets for using bases. So I'll just say this, whenever there's something new and shiny, we kind of have this feeling like we have to drop everything and do everything with it. So don't get caught up in the new and shiny. So there's a tendency to think, whoa, I just saw all these cool bases. I need to have those bases, but I have a problem. I don't have all this property information. So I better go through hundreds of notes of mine to add all this property information, thousands of notes. And it's going to be several hours over several days. that's not the best approach. So if you do want to get started on this, think about how you can start small. What are you actually focused on right now? Do you want to create like a tiny movie collection? Start with 20 movies. Just get 20 movies right. Don't try to do something crazy. So that's the first mindset for using bases. Try to keep things on the rails. Don't just go off into the wilderness for too long and forget why you're using a tool like Obsidian in the first place. Okay? Bases are great, but baby steps. The second mindset for using bases is to think bigger with your base, and then use views to filter fast. Wow, that's a real tongue twister. You saw this in my free template, and if you haven't gotten it yet, the project space is what I'm providing for free in the link below or in this QR code. Everything else is going to be a part of Ideaverse Pro 2.5. That's going to have all this basis stuff in it, absolutely everything, top of the line. But what you'll notice in the projects base, and let's open that up, even though we just looked at it last time, projects base over here, is that you want your base to be the big one. In this case, it's about projects. That way you can have smaller views on active projects versus simmering versus sleeping. So whenever you think about creating a base, I encourage you, almost challenge you to say, how can you zoom out one more level and then start from there and then allow your views to be smaller versions. Take that to its logical conclusion. You can get by with one base. You can just have it look at your entire root level system, and then you just filter as you want. And then you can have all sorts of different views here. You could have a running list. I don't know if there's a limit really. Like you could just have one base and it has all these subset views. So that's a reality. That is possible. Think bigger with your base, okay? And number 3, be okay with tending as you go. Just because bases can render all your favorite movies doesn't mean that you should drop everything and do all this. So I think I already covered this basically in putting first things first. So I kind of already covered that when we talked about don't put first things second. You want to put first things first. But a way to think about when to make changes is when either you're having fun, you're just playing around, or when you truly need to get something done and creating kind of a base with a few views you think will help you do that. I think it's nice to just kind of tend as you go, very casually. As you revisit certain notes or certain projects or efforts, you might find, oh, I better tidy up just a little bit. And this has a couple benefits. You save energy not having to revisit hundreds of your notes, and it lets you focus on your most used notes, because those are probably the ones that deserve the most attention and energy from you anyways. You can always find any of these old notes by search, right? So you can always do that. And it takes 30 seconds then, whenever you're in one of these notes, just to update a little bit of property metadata, and then you're building better opportunities for the way that you use bases moving forward. Extra questions and stuff. Where do you put your base notes? I put my base notes under Atlas and under maps, because that's essentially what they are. They're just like a form of a map of content, allowing you to view at a high level all of the relevant content to you at one given time. So for my purposes, all my bases, and these are them for now, what is that, 14? And I'll probably get to a couple more, but I really don't need much more than that. And that covers all I need, so that's where I put them. Do bases make tags obsolete? Not completely, but we can use them less. They still shine for inline tagging. Like if I want to say this particular bulleted paragraph right here, I want to make a change here, I could always just say like garden repot. Like maybe I want to make this its own note. So I'm telling myself repot it somewhere else. That's per line. I'm not saying repot the entire note. I'm saying repot this tiny spot. That is where tags still will never go out of fashion. Okay, now along with that, I can also use them for different statuses, as I showed in, I think it was the garden base, and how we can apply it there. Are links obsolete? No. In fact, bases allow links to come alive even more, and we showed that on dynamic links. That is built on links. What are links? A relationship. Our mind naturally makes relationships, but tools and environments like Obsidian, and when we make it into an Ideaverse is when over 50% of the notes are in our own words and over 50% of the notes have a link and you can easily edit it, which we're looking at here. Dynamic links come alive. So bases and links, they can both help you navigate your notes. Links, just by making them, serve that deeper purpose of making relationships, externalizing that. And when you do, when you put the effort into externalizing your thoughts this way, guess what's happening here? You're internalizing. It's a two-way street. And this is a way to do it. It is our thinking partner, it is our thinking tool, and it is the ultimate personal thinking environment. Partner, tool, environment. All three of those things. And at the heart of it, links. So no, links are not going away, but bases can help actually make links come alive even more. How do I use formulas? I'm skipping that because I really don't. There are only a couple formulas that I use here and there. And for the most part, I'm going to go online to talk to the community who's a lot smarter than me and be like, okay, what are you doing? How can I solve this problem? And because people are really helpful, they usually try to help. And then I try to pay it forward in other ways. Can you do crazy relational database stuff? I think you can. I think maybe there are some ways that we're doing that with dynamic links, but the really crazy stuff we're not. And that's really advanced. Go seek out those people. If you're a database person, let us know what's possible. Let us know in the comments. We all want to learn. Because yeah, databases just by their very nature can do crazy things, but it's kind of hard to like put them together. So anyone that can help with that, please do. Hey, what's still to come with bases? From the roadmap, there's going to be an API. Like I was pretty surprised when Obsidian said that they're going to have a bases API, but essentially they're going to allow plugins to add more power to bases with custom functions and new view types. Like I don't know quite how that's going to work, but if this is actually, I take that back. I'm not surprised. I'm curious though to see how it's going to happen because I don't know. Like, what's that going to look like? That's the big question. But I'm excited because once you get the brain power of the entire community, amazing things happen. We've seen that with the whole community plugin ecosystem. So let's see what happens here. Grouping. We'll be able to group results in bases and show summaries. This is something that I was hoping for. Like, hey, tell me the sum of how many notes are connected to this note, that sort of thing. And I'm sure there are a million different use cases. View types. Add more bases beyond table and cards. So list, which to me sounds like a table basically, but Kanban is another one. And then bases support for Obsidian Publish if you use that. Okay, next up, comparing Dataview versus bases. You know, Dataview is really powerful and you can customize it in really nice ways. We've only had Dataview as an option for like the past 3 years. I mean, bases is just fresh off the press. Dataview has some ways that you can do some really nice customizable types of things. So for this example, let's use the quotes base, which is here, and you can see it's sorted by rank. We have cool quotes, who it's by, you know, different information. Compare that one to this one. This one I've custom designed. It's part of Ideaverse Pro 2.0. We can see under quotes that it's part of these different dots of knowledge and ideas, things, statements, people, quotes, questions. It's very beautiful. We have all the quotes listed here. It's got this little emoji next to it, who it's by and the rank. It's really nice. And I can just go and I can click on like things, and then immediately I can see all these different things. Here's dynamic links that was just created, so that's why it's at the top. That's pretty beautiful. So it's kind of like this pro and con because there's a lot of beauty that you can squeeze out of Dataview, but to be honest, it by itself, it's not necessarily beautiful because, you know, you're just dealing with some code like this. It's kind of like all the icing around it that makes it what it is. So, you know, that's one example. Now the quotes base, remember, we can embed that. We can also switch the views. That's why it's good to start with that big high level base. And then we can go quotes by rank over 4. We can go top 8 quotes only, and then the list gets a lot smaller. So that's the power of bases. So, you know, does bases completely destroy Dataview? No, I think there's some taste involved, but I think by and large, most people are going to definitely have a better experience with bases, more seamless, more useful and sort of an easier experience too. So power users, advanced users, you'll still want to, for some of your purposes, you'll want to squeeze out that extra value and the customability that you can get from Dataview. But for the majority of use cases, I would say 80% of use cases will want to use bases as opposed to Dataview. We can look at recently modified, I'll skip those. And we talked a lot about the projects base. So let's compare that to projects using the customized version in Ideaverse Pro 2.0. We can see here that projects and then active, simmering, sleeping. So in the main projects, we can see the top ranked ones here. If I just jump into active, we can see the active projects here. And we can see Ideaverse Pro 2.5 like we talked about earlier. So this is a nice clean view of active projects. Now let's compare that to what the base is showing us. If we go to active projects, it's less clean, but in the same way that it's an advantage because it's giving us more context. So we can see Lightbook, we can see what the uplink is, we can see related links, different links that are connected to it. It's all right here. So it's much easier to add all sorts of different columns and properties and information to kind of enrich the context in what you're looking at. All right, we're in the home stretch now. So some updated thoughts from the original video that came out 3 months before this series of videos is that let's remember what makes Obsidian Bases so much more powerful than Notion. It's that Obsidian treats a base and looks at your entire vault, your entire collection of notes, versus Notion, which is they're kind of fragmented. So Notion has many databases, and sometimes you're like, why am I not seeing what I should be seeing? And then you go, oh, wait, that's over here in this other database. That doesn't happen in Obsidian because you're just looking at one and then you filter down. So that seems to be just a more intuitive and natural way to do it. And I think is very much appreciated by early users. You can adjust columns. I mean, left, right, that's a pretty simple thing. Functions and formulas can do a lot. We haven't really covered it too much in these videos just to speed things along. Let's recognize that this is a new file format. Now, it's future-proof enough for me. It's just a different file format. It's basically plain text, and it's just called, it's a .bases file. But it is it's very simple. Anyone can read it, and that will include other programmers for different applications, and will also include AI, allowing all sorts of ways to integrate with this format. It's on your computer, and you own it. Early rough edges. Way easier to add properties. Before, I can't even remember, but you click on properties and it didn't give you any options. So you had to initiate the auto, you had to initiate and I was like, okay, I have all these options to choose from. Plus I can, start typing and then narrow down as I need to. So that they've made it a lot easier that way. Implications for links. Hey, 3 months ago, I was a little concerned. Until I discovered dynamic links, I was like, okay, are people just going to spend all this time in bases and then start databasing at the cost of writing, thinking, and linking? Like, is that what's going to happen? But I have far less of that fear now because I see this as a way to really enrich one's Ideaverse, one's interconnected digital notes. And so I think the implications for links are that bases actually help elevate the significance of links if used appropriately. I think there's still some slippery slopes, but I'm far more positive in how bases can actually elevate the power of linking our thinking. And then implications for AI. AI will continue to learn the bases format, probably even can create some bases for us based on our file structure. Actually, I showed how Claude Code helped me populate all the images for my books. And that was pretty awesome to see. So this sort of agentic, somewhat active AI can probably help us do a lot of different things with these notes. So I think implications for AI are this is a nice, clean, simple format that it can learn the syntax for all the notes the team of Obsidian has published. They're online. Pretty soon, AI will become comfortable with those. Probably can create some pretty cool bases for us. So maybe I can say, hey, make me a base of all my quote notes, sort them by rank, and show the number of inlinks and outlinks, and make a special cool column that adds relevancy ranking by computing some sort of formula that combines my personal rank with the in links and the out links that each note has. Whew. That'd be cool. You know, so I mean, we can get creative. The way I look at it is that we can imagine more with AI being the developer. What if we could do this? Can you make this possible? Give this a shot, and then let's see what's possible. So current guidance, and I've already provided a little bit here, but start with 1 or 2 bases. Start small. Don't just try to like radically change your entire, you know, all these different hundreds of notes. Start with like 10 to 20 notes. See if you can create a base that you think is really helpful. See what you can do with that. All right, that's it. Honestly, using bases to create dynamic links is the game changer, and it speaks to a need, a desire I've long longed for. It's echolocation. It's like depth mapping. It's how fast can you like click on a note and immediately have this dimensional context greet you with every note that you jump into. That's what I did with the right-hand sidebar over here. And this isn't the best note for it, but when you get to those notes and when you have an ideaverse that is well linked, then wow, you are truly empowered in a way that is augmenting not intelligence, but creativity, imagination. It's reinforcing, and strengthening memory, because it's strengthening those connections to, oh yeah, that relates to that. Oh yeah, that reminds me of that. Oh yeah, this and this. Otherwise, those connections, they don't strengthen, they weaken over time. So I am kind of beyond the moon with what Obsidian Bases has become, especially when you embed them in a sidebar and they become dynamic links. I hope you enjoyed this 4-part series. Please like these videos if you've gotten any value out of them. Subscribe, leave a comment, let me know what's resonating. Let me know how you're using bases, and all of us, so we can all learn together. And with that, until next time, stay connected.